tweets, they can just hang out with us for a second if they're already here. I don't know how they would be, but that'd be cool.
The 6 to 10 people that we get every week live. We need to figure out a way to get more people to see us live because we pretty much do it on time every week. So we just need to honestly, tell people.
I think that the problem is not everybody, like a lot of people work in offices. And so this is not a good hour for them to be free. Like they're in the middle of their jobs.
We should make it the lunch hour. Oh, wait, that would be earlier for me.
Uh-oh. Even earlier for you on the West Coast.
I don't want that.
And tweet. And retweet. All right.
Okay.
It has been done.
We are ready then.
All right. And we are about to begin. It is Thursday, August 9th, 2018. I'm Micah Sargent, and right now we are going to talk about busting iPhone battery myths. Tim Cook talking about all that money they made, some apps getting updates, some apps getting crushed, potentially some stuff about games, because this is the iMore Show. Joining us back this week, we did miss her so very much. Lori Gill, I told everybody that they had to watch out for flying pigs last week while you were gone, because that's the only way that it's possible that you weren't here. I hope you had fun in Disney.
You know, I did, and the one thing that will keep me from the iMore Show is Disneyland.
Renee and I actually said, like, if there's one thing where Lori would say, sorry, but I have to do this. And I was like, I don't even know if she would say sorry when it comes to Disney. It'd just be like, bye,
see ya.
Disney time. So we're so happy to have you back. The podcast, it feels normal again. And I'm excited to have Luke Philip. And I'm excited to have Luke Philip. Oh God, I can't say it now.
Filipovich.
No.
Yeah, Luke Filipovich.
Luke Filipovich. Thank you. I am excited to have Luke Filipovich on the show again. It's good to have you back, and we're excited to chat with you about all the things.
Yeah, likewise.
So it is time to get the show going. It is time to get started. It is the three of us. We can make it if we try. And up first is busting iPhone battery myths. So, Lori, there are, some common concerns out there about iPhone batteries, including, well, maybe after you get an update, the iPhone battery, your battery life kind of stinks, or maybe when things aren't running how they should, you can just force quit all your apps and that's going to give you more battery. I mean, there are lots of different myths out there, and our colleague Renee Ritchie has put together a guide kind of explaining this, but perhaps we should go through a few of these and talk about what's going on.
Yeah, so the reason I think I wanted to make sure we talked about this is most of my friends they have an iPhone, but they're not sort of deep in the tech world like we are, that they will say things like that to me. Well, I downloaded the newest update and now my phone doesn't work because the battery dies all the time. The new update broke my phone. Or my significant other, he force closes all the apps and multitasking all the time. So this is a really great article that Renee covers 7 different myths about what's wrong with your iPhone battery and what's true and what's not true about them. Let's start with the first one, because I think this is the one that is the most common, which is the latest iOS update broke my battery. And let's start with yes, sort of. So yeah, as soon as you do a major update, it might destroy your battery for a couple of days. But what's happening, or if you restore your phone too, that at first that might happen. So let's do an explainer for it from Renee's wording. That's because the radios turn on and stay on while it re-downloads all of your apps, games, photos, and videos. The processors, the storage system files, all of this is being updated. Libraries are re-indexing searches, and all of this stuff has to keep your phone awake and running while it's happening. Mm-hmm. So yes, for a couple of days at most, your battery life is going to suffer for it. It doesn't mean that the latest iOS update or by restoring your phone, you've actually broken something in the phone or that there's some sort of malfunction in the software. It's just this is part of the process. These are really big updates, or a restoring process is really heavy processor consuming. So when this happens, for example, in the fall when we get the iOS 12 update, your battery life is going to suffer. But don't be afraid. Give it some time. It doesn't mean that there isn't something wrong, because that also happens. But give it a few days before you start frantically calling Apple Care for support. If it's usually relating to all of the updates that are just kind of bogging down your iPhone and kind of like putting a heavy burden on the battery power for it. After a few days, if your battery life is still not working properly, we do have a guide we'll link in the show notes that will help you troubleshoot all of the various battery related issues before you finally have to end up calling Apple Care for support.
I'm going to use a gross analogy, so be prepared, strap in. But the comparison that I would make is like, so you're going along, you're doing your thing, you're living life, everything's great, and you decide that for the first time, you're going to try Indian food. So you go and you eat Indian food, and your digestive system is like, whoa, we have got to spin up some extra processes because I was not prepared for this spice and this certain kind of material that's being used in this food. And so your stomach is grumbling. Your body has to work harder to process all of that food for a period of time. But after a while, things sort of level out and you become used to it. So if you think of like a new iOS update as Indian food, the first time you've had it, then what happens is you've got that process where you're kind of spinning things up, digesting, you're getting back to normal, and then everything settles out and your stomach is working at normal, your battery is not going to be running down. So they say that like the way to remember things very well is if we tie them to gross things or maybe inappropriate things. So now you'll never forget, because anytime your battery is sort of going slow at the beginning of your iOS update, or rather is running out at the beginning of your iOS update, you'll think, it's just eating Indian food, everything will be fine soon.
I love this analogy. It's disgusting.
It's so gross. Let's talk about my favorite one, Lori, which is about force quitting apps.
I was hoping you were going to pick that one.
God, so many people do this, and so many people that I personally know do this. And I've had like, let me pull out my piece of paper. Let's get you laid down on like a nice sofa. I'll sit in a chair behind you. I'll have my pen out and ask you some questions. Now, how does that make you feel? Like, I genuinely want to know what is the thought process behind this. And so I will go through the explanation of, and I'll explain that here in a second, of what's going on whenever you are force quitting your phone, your apps, and like when that helps and when it doesn't. And for a lot of people, it's less about, it started out as like, I heard this saved battery life, but then it became this thing that's sort of like just a bit of a nervous tick, or a way of like decreasing anxiety is honestly something that I've heard from several people. They're like, I just don't feel like I can lock my phone until all the apps are force quit. So in explaining what this is and how it works, I'm not saying like, do not do this, or you're terrible for not, for not keeping your apps open. If you've got a reason to do it, then do it. But I just want you to make an informed decision whenever you are force quitting apps, and not just because some uncle's, brother's, cousin's sister told you that it was going to save you battery life. Now, when these apps are running on your phone, they are, of course, the one that's right in front is going to be taking up processing power. It's going to be, maybe it's a game, it's going to be taking up some of the screen, it's going to be putting out music through the speakers. All these different things are running down your battery. The apps that are in the background, they are automatically going to be using less energy because they aren't active at the moment. And they're going to be doing things like the Facebook app might be downloading new notifications that are coming in. Instagram would be downloading new photos, so that the next time you go into those apps, you're not sitting there waiting, why can't I see that new photo of sushi that Renee just posted? Or why can't I see my sister's new baby on Facebook? While you're waiting and waiting and waiting for those to load, that's what's going on in the background. And so that's why some people think, if I force quit apps, it's going to save me battery life. Here's the problem. Think about the difference between you like going to bed at night and waking up in the morning, and you like starting to lay down and take a brief little nap, and then something, shaking you awake. It's easier to wake up from that. You just started to take the nap, you just are sort of like slowing down, and then you wake back up and you're alert. Whereas like overnight, if the alarm wakes you up at 6, it might take you a little bit to get out of bed. That's the same thing that's going on with the apps. If you completely close down the app, make it go away, when you reopen that, it has to do everything all over again. It has to download stuff. It has to pull in photos. It has to do all the processing that is required to like get the app going and loading. And if you just let them sit in the background, then whenever you go to them, there's much less that's going to be taking battery from you. So that is the reason that you shouldn't force quit apps, because you'll end up saving battery by keeping them running in the background and not making them re-download every single time. And the only time when you should be force quitting apps, if your logic is battery based, is if the app completely stops functioning. If something's going wrong with the app and it's not working, go ahead and force quit it. That almost always fixes the problem. But other than that, you're just ending up using more of your battery than less of it. And that is not good.
I like to think of it with the Indian food analogy.
Oh, yes.
No, I'm just kidding.
Let's see. How can we work this in? No. So yeah, that's the one about force quitting your batteries. Now, there is an interesting one here. Luke, I'm curious, do you use an iOS or Android device that has wireless charging?
Yeah, definitely. My iPhone X, or sorry, I call it the X, the iPhone 10.
Yeah, it uses wireless charging. And so I'm sort of new to wireless charging, and I didn't even know that this was a thing, but one of the topics that Renee talks about here is about, are you on the article?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, sweet. Do you want to tell us a little bit about sort of, because the analogy is, or the thought is that wireless charging or fast charging, which isn't available on many iOS devices, is going to destroy your battery life. So by popping it down onto a wireless charging pad, that's more harmful to the battery than if you just plugged it in using a regular adapter. Is that true? Or is that false?
It's a bit of both.
Okay. I like those.
Yeah. So the batteries have a normal like functioning temperature, which is typically, if your battery's around room temperature, your battery's doing fine. It's working what it needs. But if your battery, and especially here in Canada, we've all done this, accidentally locked our car or our phone in the car in the middle of winter, and your battery gets too cold, that's going to destroy your battery life and even have permanent effects on your battery life. But what people don't realize is that heat is also really bad for lithium ion batteries, which are in your phone. Heat can destroy a battery's life and a battery's capacity over time.
Will to live.
Yeah, and
I'm too hot. I don't want to live.
It's so hot out here. I just want to go away forever. Sorry, go ahead.
And the chemical reaction, regardless of whether you plug it in or use wireless charging, the chemical reaction that's happening in that lithium ion battery will produce heat. It's just kind of chemistry. That's how it works. But wireless charging does tend to produce a little more on average. And same with fast charging as well. And the reason why is because the faster you charge something, the more heat you will generate. Mm-hmm. As Renee kind of says, it shouldn't be that bad. It kind of says in the article that like, typically if you're leaving it on the wireless charger to actually charge up your phone and you're not putting it there unnecessarily, then you're most likely not going to see a crazy reduction in your overall battery health. However, what you should stay away from is unnecessary fast charging, or really all unnecessary charging. Like once your phone's at 100%, take it off. Not because it's actively charging the battery necessarily, but there's still a bit of that, a bit of the heat transfer, especially on a wireless charger, will kind of continue because you are still making that contact on that pad. So when you're wireless charging, it's good to take your phone off once it's full up on what it needs to be, or however much you want to charge it. And a key thing is like and I actually did move my wireless charger in my room because I did have it in a sunny spot. That was actually making it generate way more heat than normal, just because obviously the sun is hot and then the rays through the window and stuff. It was small, but it was definitely noticeable that my iPhone got way hotter when I was in the sun. So I actually moved my plug. I moved it to the other side of my bed where it stays in the shade. So that's a good thing to remember for even if you're just charging, whether you're doing fast charging, wireless charging, or regular charging. Like, try not to leave it in any hot or cold places. Try and keep the battery in that nice temperature of, comfortable living that it likes to be in.
See that is very well put. I think something also to keep in mind with these is you really should not skimp on the chargers, the charging cables, all these devices. Do not skimp on them, because the difference between a low quality, low cost, especially when it comes to wireless charging, a low quality, low cost wireless charger and a high quality, more cost wireless charger is typically in the heat management area. So they're going to do about the same when it comes to charging, but where they cut on production costs is the technology surrounding that charging. And so that includes the heat management and the way that the wireless charging pad sort of handles that and can sense when it's too hot or when it's not. And if you're going to be having, like, one of the pros about wireless charging is sort of the thought of, I lay down and I just sort of lazily drop my phone, on top of the charging pad. So you want to be able to charge it overnight on the charging pad and not worry about the heat. And in the end, like, this is why you should, spend a little bit more money if you're going to go the wireless charging route.
Yeah, definitely.
It's also important to consider. It's also important to think about that technology has gotten so much better over the last few years. So batteries have a limited life cycle. That's just kind of like the nature of them. So the life cycle being like the amount of times that it can be charged to full, which most people don't drain to zero and then charge to full. So that's, it's not the life cycle, or the cycle number of cycles is not really relevant anymore, but that's kind of the terminology that's used. Mm-hmm. And charging devices and devices that need to be charged have both technologically have kind of grown and gotten better at managing that kind of thing over time. So that sort of old school idea that, you shouldn't leave your phone on the charger all the time because it ruins the battery life. Other than the heat aspect of it, that's not really a thing anymore. It's not really, so it is, just a little bit, but it's such a very small amount of a difference in your battery life overall that it's not like your battery is going to die a year faster just because you've been using a charging pad. There's operating systems have things in place to help manage battery use and charge and things like that. And the charging devices themselves have improved over time to incorporate things like turning off after they've hit that max charge and things like that. So it's not as scary as it used to be. We don't have to really worry for ourselves as much as we maybe used to 10 years ago or 8 years ago or whatever. To now, I guess 10 years ago now, for how often we charge our devices. So that's also something to kind of remember, is just don't be so scared to charge your device. Keep it away from heat as much as possible. Your charging pad will generate a little more heat, which will add like a nominal amount of degradation to your battery. Which I say this because it leads me to the one other comment, which Renee puts on his guide, which is you should keep your iPhone plugged in and or never let it fully charge. These are both kind of the same issue, which is it does have a very, very minor effect on the overall battery health because of the charging cycle situation. Like if you were really hyper good at charging your battery full, then letting it drop to zero, then charging it to full, and then letting it drop to zero, and you never did it any other way, yeah, your battery would last a little bit longer, a little bit. But to charge it when it's at half full, or to, excuse me, or to never let it get to zero, this is okay. These are all things that are okay. The amount of battery health degradation that goes into play on doing these kinds of activities with your charging devices. It's such a small amount that it won't really affect the overall battery health in the long run. Its life will be just like minimally longer or shorter depending on your activities in that case.
Yep, doesn't end up making that much of a difference. There are a few other myths there that we didn't cover in the chat, so you can go ahead and click on the link in the show notes to check out that article and read all about the different ways that you can not only bust those myths, but how to make use of different battery features. So there's some step-by-step guides within that article to check out as well. Now, before we move along to talk about Tim Cook and his message to employees after making $1 trillion, I do want to tell you all about our pals at Thrifter. If you've been listening to the iMore show and you don't know about Thrifter, you must be some sort of magical being, because we've talked about them before. Thrifter is a way to save money on everything from gadgets to home goods by shopping based on value and not hype. What does that mean? It means you're getting actual real deals and not those deals that these companies sort of put up that end up not saving you very much money, but look like they're good deals. It's none of that tricksy stuff. It's all the very, very good deals to help you save money. Now, if you go and sign up at thrifter.com, you're going to get thoughtfully selected deals from places like Amazon and Best Buy daily. It's all the stuff, none of the fluff at Thrifter. And I have Luke here to tell us about an awesome deal that he found on Thrifter.
Yeah, so right now you can actually, on Thrifter, Logitech's 2.1 home speaker system, which you can hook up to your computer or your TV. It's a nice little small subwoofer and then 2 speakers to give you nice sound, which is going to immediately make an impact if you plug it into your TV or your computer. It's normally about $100, but it's on right now for only $79.99. So you're saving about $20 there for a nice little 400-watt system that'll definitely increase the volume and increase the quality of your sound if you don't have anything hooked up yet. It's a great way. It's a great way to make your audio just a bit better without spending too much money.
Excellent. Yes. So there is a deal for you to check out. Lots of other deals as well. You can also follow Thrifter at Thrifter Daily on Twitter, where they are always putting out deals and always getting me to spend money I shouldn't be spending. I should be saving instead.
I just saw 6 action flicks starring Jason Statham for $10. I love Jason Statham, even though he makes some of the worst movies ever. So there goes $10 of my money.
Goodbye, $10. And hello, Thrifter. So go ahead and sign up at thrifter.com and you'll get those deals. All the stuff, none of the fluff. Thanks so much to Thrifter for sponsoring this week's episode of the iMore Show. Lori, what happens when you make $1 trillion and you're the CEO of a company and you have to say something to your employees to acknowledge the financial gains?
Well, if the company that I ran made $1 trillion, I'd be like, that's right, Buster.
And then you'd swim in a vat of money, because that's what I'd do.
I think there would be a little bit of Scrooge McDuck swimming in gold going on for sure. Definitely. And I know what we're about to talk about, but I have a feeling that the moment he found out, CEO Tim Cook probably had the most smug expression on his face.
Well, Apple is doomed, though. You know, like they made $1 million or $1 trillion. They made it to $1 trillion, and they're doomed. No, they're not. They're not doomed. But this memo. So I'm going to read a little bit of it. Financial returns are simply the result of Apple's innovation, putting our products and customers first, and always staying true to our values. Steve founded Apple on the belief that the power of human creativity can solve even the biggest challenges, and that the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. Just as Steve always did in moments like this, we should all look forward to Apple's bright future and the great work we'll do together. So Renee and I talked a little bit about this $1 trillion achievement on the last episode of the show. And one of the things that he brought up, and, I sort of realized that I agreed with him about, is like, It is different when you see the bench warmers become the, they take the season at the end, or the bad news bears, or what bad luck bears, or what they are, like end up winning the whole tournament. This is a company that continues to, all they do is win, 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 no matter what, as the song goes. And so in and of itself, this number is cool, but it's like, did we expect anything else, really? This isn't some rags to riches story. It's just sort of what's expected. And so in that sense, I like that Tim Cook seems to be taking that same sort of view of things. It's like, yeah, we can celebrate this, but like, we would have been doing not so great a job if we didn't get here. You know what I mean? Like, it had to happen at some point. Yay, it's happened, but like, let's keep being great so that we can, make to the next whatever the number happens to be.
I think this is a $1 trillion humble brag here.
Yeah, you might be right. This might be.
Yeah, he's basically saying thank you, thank you, thank you, but of course.
Yeah. I think you might have a point there. He's such like a Southern gentleman that I could see like a nice subtle little smile on his face. I'm sure he had a great glass of whatever like the most expensive bourbon one person can buy is. But outwardly, I like the way that the company is sort of handling this. What are your thoughts in general on the company reaching this level of success, and how does it affect your view of the company at all? Either of you?
Luke?
Yeah, I wouldn't say so. I mean, like, I could be the cynical person who says like, well, all businesses are just trying to make as much money as they can, which is true to some degree. But from covering Apple and being an Apple consumer and user, I do feel that, to some degree, or not even to some degree, they do have obviously a focus with their, their marketing and the products that they put out and what they're doing with their software, and everything's definitely through that sort of same lens. And of course, businesses are going to try and make money. That's clearly a goal of theirs. But I do think that, Apple does, where it can, kind of have a bit of a two-tiered strategy where it comes to, this is going to be good for a bottom line, but it's also going to be good for our audience for, X, Y, Z. So it definitely doesn't change.
Zed, I love it. Sorry.
We both giggled.
I love it.
So it definitely doesn't change my opinion. I mean, obviously it's awesome that they got, like, it's kind of like, I can't even imagine that type of money, like as somebody, as just a person, I can't even imagine that number or what that looks like or what that even really means. Inside, it's kind of so grand in that way. But I think for the most part, Apple's just doing what Apple has done well for, years, and probably will for years to come. And I'm still always looking forward to every product launch for, the trolls / some real people who like to say that, Apple is on its last legs, because that's always fun. And then we can point back to this, and then maybe they'll probably still bug us, but
I don't think we will ever hear Apple is doomed from any pundit again, because there's no way that you could say that with this $1 trillion company name now. So Luke, I definitely agree with you on pretty much everything, which is a company is always trying to make the most money. Their focus is not, let's just make wonderful products for everybody. If that were the case, then they would give them away. So clearly they're, making money is a really big deal, and it is a hyper focus. But I think what I'm getting from the memo that Tim Cook sent over to Reuters was that let's not focus on how much money we're making. Let's focus on the fact that we are an innovative tech company that's trying to make better products for the consumer. I think an example of them not caring how much money they make would be the HomePod. They entered the market with a smart speaker that was years behind what was already out. It was incredibly limited on its smart features, but they wanted to make a speaker that Apple people love. So I love it. I use it all the time. My HomePod is it's always on. I'm almost 100% of the time I'm using it. I ask Siri all kinds of questions about the music I'm listening to or the weather that day or my calendar updates. I listen to music through it just directly from Apple Music, or I have it hooked up with my speakers from my television set. For me, a HomePod is an absolute wonderful addition to my Apple ecosystem. But if you only have an iPhone, you're not going to want a HomePod. It's too much money. It doesn't do enough stuff for you. So Apple was saying, no, this isn't a money-making product, but we want to make Apple fans happy by giving them a speaker that they can use to access all of the things that they already get to access on their phones and on their Apple TV and on their computers and things in a limited capacity. So I think HomePod is a really great example of how Apple doesn't care how much money they make.
Interesting. I like that. I like that theory. I think you both have excellent viewpoints on it. When it comes to sort of the look at how much money this company made and, you know, all you haters out there kind of thing, I just don't really get into that. That stuff just doesn't interest me. I think that it's incredible that this company has made this amount of money. I think it's not surprising that this company has made this amount of money. And as long as they keep putting out products that I really do enjoy and love to have and to hold until death do us part, I don't really care what money they're making. Like you'd think I would, because I transcribe the financial calls, but no, I don't. I like the stuff that ends up coming out of it. And if they have that money and can use that for better research and development to make cooler products, by golly, I will celebrate every single new $1 bill that gets added to that trillion value if it means cool new stuff. So congratulations to all the employees who work at Apple who have worked hard to make this a reality. And thanks for making cool gadgets for us to use. It is time to go ahead and move on now to our next topic, which happens to be about podcasting. That is this thing that we're doing right here, talking into microphones. And hopefully, if we, get enough listeners, then sponsors come along and want to be part of our show, like our friends at Thrifter. But not everybody can count on that. And because of that, a company called Anchor is trying to make that a possibility for everybody. So Anchor is this really cool app. It started out as a sort of bite-sized audio sharing platform. You could go on, you could record little bits of audio, you could throw music in between, throw in transitions, and you made like your own little radio show. And not long after the app launched and started to get some popularity, they realized, holy cow, we can help people make their own podcasts. So they offered this ability for you to go in and publish those little radio shows that you made to a podcast feed. And so you could get listed in Apple Podcasts and other podcast libraries. Then they came along and offered new editing tools so you could completely edit your show right there in Anchor. And now the latest and greatest feature that they've come up with, this is called Anchor Listener Support. And so what this does, and this is, I think, the coolest part of it, regardless of your experience and regardless of your audience size, you as a podcaster can start collecting recurring monthly payments from listeners. So whereas right now the sort of bridge between being a podcaster who's just doing it completely for fun and being a podcaster who's doing it for fun but also makes some money is audience size. And sometimes people just have tiny little audiences who are super supportive of them, but there's not an easy way to do that to support. And that's why this has come along and is available now. So you can actually go ahead and ask, for your listeners to support you. And there's one-touch payment with Apple Pay and Google Pay. And it allows you to do different pledge levels. And I do want to note the fee that Anchor takes out is 4.5%, and they use Stripe to do processing. So there are some other percentages involved. But yes, that's something to check out if you've been thinking about starting a podcast or you do have one that has maybe a small audience. Thoughts on this new thing, either of you?
The thing that I really like about Anchor's listener support So it's weird to use the iMore show as an example because like we're on the iMore show, but how else can I show my support to a podcast to give them money, to make sure that the money goes directly to them, except for through something like this? You go to their website, maybe they'll say something like, use our code on this thing that you buy, or you can visit our website directly to give us money, or, there's all these difficult ways basically to support your favorite podcast, unless you're subscribing through, one of the sort of podcast organizations, which, you can subscribe through payments through those. But, if I'm just listening to something in iTunes, for example, and I really like this podcast and I want to support them, I have to go through a bunch of channels to get to them. But through Anchor, you can just hit that button and you can just give them some money. You can support them with a subscription right there. You don't have to jump through hoops. You don't have to go, oh, when I get home, I have to remember to go to that website and go, to donate some money to them. Or, maybe I do want something to buy something that they're supporting or that they're getting a promotion for. You don't have to do that. It's right there. You just click on it and you're good to go. So I really love this sort of direct podcaster to audience interaction that allows us as the listener to support these podcasts without kind of feeling bad if we don't get to it soon enough or something like that.
Yeah, I'm all for creators having the ability to monetize their work in easier ways and being able to directly kind of address their audience for that monetization. I agree with Lori. There's sometimes a lot more complicated ways that creators can set up, and not that they shouldn't. I think all avenues are great, but it's nice that Anchor is kind of built in, a button that I can press, and the podcast that I'm listening to there's money going towards them. And I mean, Anchor takes a fee, of course. What was the fee that you mentioned? Was it 4.5?
Yeah, it's like the industry's lowest fee, 4.5%.
I was gonna say I'm not super up on exactly what everyone takes, considering like Patreon and other things like that. But 4.5 is not really that high from my knowledge, at least. So that's I like that's low. It's nice that more money is going towards the creator. And yeah, I'm a big fan of supporting the creators that even podcasts that I listen to or YouTube channels that I watch. I am constantly looking out for, people's Patreons or people's, if they have a merch website. I know that merch for YouTubers can be especially lucrative if people are willing. And if I'm consuming someone's content on a regular basis and I enjoy it, then I do want to support them. I liken it to, I don't have cable because #cord cutting. But I liken it to, I watch a lot of media content or get a lot of my entertainment from these, small independent creators. And, I'm not paying a cable subscription because that doesn't, I don't like that content, or I don't need that content in my life, but I do use this content on like a lot of them. Some of them are on a everyday basis. So I kind of liken it to, I personally set up a little bit of a budget, and I kind of have a budget each month of, what I'm going to give to people that I enjoy. And it's a loose system, but I always kind of make sure if I'm enjoying someone's productions, that I kind of give back to them. So I would also encourage listeners, if you are listening to a podcast on Anchor and, you notice that they put that up, if you've been listening to them and you really enjoy their work, like if you can, like I would say, pitch it to them. All creators, I want the chance for everybody to make whatever art and whatever entertainment that they want. So
amen.
I feel like we need to get Ira Glass on the show right now to encourage people to donate.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that is exactly how I feel. The last thing that I'll say about this is, even so, I do podcasts aside from iMore Show, and we have sponsors who come on the show. And we also do have memberships that people blessedly they sign up for, and they pay a monthly fee, and some of that money goes. I think the difference between those types of things, this is that as we've noted, it is direct. And so for people who have like the biggest thing is there are many small podcasts out there doing really cool things that have small audiences that in no other possible situation would be able to make any money off of the thing that they do. And folks, podcasting, especially if you're doing everything, if you are doing from producing the show to editing the show to, you know, hosting the show to doing research for the show, all of it, it's not insignificant. It's not just sitting down in front of the mic and talking into a microphone. Again, unless you have all of those other things figured out through other people and stuff like that. And so it's a big deal. And to completely use your free time to do that can start to be pretty taxing. So I'm glad that there is this feature out here that's potentially going to help make more shows be awesome and do cool things, because this is also offering, you know, resources to make shows better and get better microphones and things like that. There are all sorts of reasons why this is cool. So good on Anchor. And I hope that they continue to be good stewards of the podcasting ecosystem, because that just means more diversity and more awesome shows. Is it time, Lori, for you to say a little eulogy for this mail app?
I need to pour one out right now.
Pour one out for Newton.
Newton, I discovered Newton, maybe it's been 2 years now. I was actually doing some research for mail apps for the Mac, and I've got a handful of favorites that I love. And this one was new to me. So I think it was suggested to me. Okay, sure, I'll check it out. Subscription based, I immediately was like, what? I have to pay for this? But you know what? I gave it a try anyway. I love it. Newton is the perfect email client for me. And I've been using it ever since, paying my subscription because I absolutely love it. And it is worth that subscription price to me. And 2 days ago, as of right now, on August 7th, they made an announcement that Newton Mail is shutting down. I know that our larger audience probably does not use Newton. That's why they're shutting down. So I won't speak to this too much. But I did have to just mention that I really appreciated that mail app. And I wish Cloud Magic all the best in the future. And I'm so sorry to lose it. And also maybe we could talk a little bit about our favorite mail apps on Mac. Do either of you use a mail app on Mac? And if you don't, if you only use the mail app that comes with the default mail app from Apple, talk about that too. And Micah, I want you to go first because you're jiggling, so okay. I think you have a lot to say.
Yeah, I love my mail app. I use an app called Airmail. Many of you have probably heard of it. It is sort of the power users email app because it just has so many features packed in. I use it on my iPad, on my iPhone, on the Mac, all over the place. What's cool about Airmail is it lets you not only, of course, like anytime you get a mail app, you log into your accounts and then the mail comes in, but it also lets you sync your settings for each of those accounts across all of the platforms where you have this app installed. And so my precise way that I like to get email from my different email accounts and the way that I have things filtered and the way that I have notifications set up and VIP contacts and all of this stuff, all I have to do is log in and it syncs all of that stuff across all of the different apps. So anytime I install like a new operating system fresh or get a new device or what have you, it's so easy to get in there and get this set up without any problems. But that's not really like where Airmail's awesomeness lies. It lies in its services integration. So just to name a few, Airmail works directly with Google Drive, Dropbox, Todoist, Wunderlist, Evernote, Trello, OmniFocus, Things, Fantastical, Bear, and let's go with CardHop. It works with all of these different apps and lets you do cool, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example. One example that I love is the Deliveries app, which I use a lot because I do a lot of my grocery shopping and like stuff I need for the house shopping on Amazon. And so when I get the email from Amazon in my airmail box, I can like right click on it and say send to deliveries, and it like automatically sends to delivery, puts in the proper code for tracking, all that stuff right away. Then, like I said, being able to have these direct connections with Dropbox for attachments and Todoist, if that's, you want to set up a to-do list and it involves emails, it is so great. It is so packed full of features and so packed full of just options in general of different things that you can do. And now that I live in like, it's like I'm what is it? I'm like a shark in a big tank. If they tried to put me now back into the tiny aquarium that is the normal mail app, I wouldn't fit anymore because I've grown to fill this space and it's so great. I don't think that's actually true though. I think they debunked that myth about sharks, but that's beside the point. So Airmail is definitely my app of choice. Luke, which app do you use?
So I actually don't use a mail app.
Not even the Mac installed mail app? You don't check your email at all on your computer? Are you crazy?
I am a little crazy, but I actually pretty much only ever use email on my iPhone.
Wow.
I almost compose every email. On occasion, I've done stuff in the Mac, and then I usually just log into like my Gmail account or whatever account I'm using, and I just like do it that way. But yeah, on my iPhone, I don't use a mail app either. I've thought about it. I thought a lot about it. But I think I'm so out of habit, like in my own world now of just having my, emails come into there and kind of in a way, and I'll be the first to admit this, the iOS mail app is not as elegant as it could be. But I think I've just kind of like worked through the chaos long enough that now I don't know if I would know what to do without the chaos. So I typically just use the Apple Mail app, and I find it good enough for what I need it to do. I don't know why, but I typically do all of my emailing on my phone as well. I don't think I've ever actually opened the mail app on my Mac since I've had it.
That just gives me a headache just thinking about it.
It's a little bit of an organized chaos system, but I don't know, it works for me.
Yeah. Well, there are some benefits to using the built-in Apple Mail app. I have it and I use it sometimes. I open it and kind of get some reorganization through it. There are some good features with the Apple Mail app on iPhone and on Mac, but I think, Luke, you've kind of hit on this sort of like organized chaos idea that you just kind of worked through it so that it's like you've just kind of determined that, I'm only going to get to eat this bowl of wheat germ for the rest of my life. So I'm just going to figure out how to make that work for me. And, I think we need to present you with a bowl of ice cream so that you can see what it's like.
Yeah, maybe. I'm sure if I make the dive, if I take the time and I make the dive and I switch over to an app, I'm sure I'd probably love it.
I really hate to, I don't mean to knock what the Apple Mail developers do. I know that it's complicated and very, very difficult. It's just everybody's different. Everybody has a different way that they mail. And that's why it's really nice that there are third-party developers out there that can present us with different versions of how to keep track of your inbox and organize it. And not everybody does it the way they user interfaces on the mail app on Mac or iPhone. That's why there's, Polymail and Airmail and Spark and all those other ones, is to kind of give us those options. So,
Well said. Let's go ahead. We have to talk about a device, and I think this may be maybe the last thing we do, maybe one of the last things that we do. There is a new charging device out from Logitech that was made in conjunction with Apple. Lori, do you want to tell us a little bit about the powered wireless charger?
Yeah, so Logitech, in collaboration with Apple, designed a standing wireless charger. Instead of a flat pad, it actually rests in a 65-degree angle for your iPhone, for iPhone 10, iPhone 8, and iPhone 8 Plus. It's minimalist. It's just got a little sort of U shape on the front. It's white. It kind of reminds me of a larger version of the Tile, the thing that you would clip to your keychain that actually helps you find your phone when it's missing. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Tile.
Yeah, the Tile. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the little.
Yeah, it's just this little sort of rounded square, and the back side of the Powered actually kind of reminds me of that. It's just this sort of rounded rectangle. It's rounded edges. I personally think it's pretty nice, and I can't wait to get my hands on one. But there have been a few people out there in the world who just think it's just downright ugly. So, what do you guys think about it?
Luke, you first.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of ugliness, I definitely don't think it's ugly. I don't know. I feel like since it was designed with in collaboration with Apple, I feel like if I was to have that on my desk right next to my iMac and I had, my iPad by it and everything, I feel like it would all match, which is kind of what Apple does with a lot of their products. And, they'll match colors, or they'll match styles and things like that. Granted, if all you have is an iPhone, and say you have a Windows or something like that, and then you put that on your desk, it might not look as good. But in terms of like overall look, I think it's pretty sleek. I think it looks like, I don't have one in front of me, but it looks like it functions perfectly well for what its intended purpose is. I'm not really sure why it's getting a little bit of hate on the looks, but I suppose that is a very subjective thing. Some people they might want something a little thinner because it's a little thick, and they might want something, I don't know, maybe they don't like the white, maybe they want black, but that's a very subjective thing. There's no doubt in my mind that, first of all, Logitech makes pretty high quality, high brand stuff all the time. I have lots of Logitech items, from headphones to mics to webcams to like everything. They kind of do everything in tech space, and they're very well trusted for good reason. They make good products. So I feel like teaming up with Apple and making something like this makes sense, and it's definitely on brand for both Apple and Logitech. So I feel like if you like the look of it and you're in the market for a charger that you know for sure is going to 100% work with Apple and work with the wireless charging specifications, and it's even got the 7.5 watt fast charging enabled through it, and you want to make sure that it works and it's 100% compatible, and you're not worried about any small little third-party companies wireless charger or anything like that. I feel like it's probably a great product to pick up if you don't have one already.
Very well said. I think that this thing is beautiful. I understand maybe the concern about it not being good looking or something, but for me, I think that it looks right. It looks like it belongs with, as we're all saying, it belongs with Apple products. So I want one. I think that'll look great on my desk. I like the idea of the device being able to sit up. And some of the other, that's one of the main things that is kind of annoying me about this, is that some of the other ones out there that let it sit up on your desk are really truly ugly. They are bad. They are a big circle in the back, and you lay your phone down and the circle sticks out on either side. This keeps it from sticking out on either side. And then if you go to Logitech's page and read about this, so much of it was carefully configured and designed. It's got special engineering for heat, as we talked about earlier, and safety with electronics, but you can also use it in landscape and portrait mode. So if it's sitting on your desk, you want to watch a game or something on your phone, you totally can. But my favorite thing is that it's got a charging cradle to keep your device in there. And so even if it vibrates, it's not going to fall off of the charging pad, which is a problem with a lot of other chargers. So to me, I think that all of those things add up to a very good device that looks better than some of the other stuff that's out there. Absolutely. And so I'm glad that Apple and Logitech worked together to make this.
Yes, some of the things that you're pointing out in the details are definitely a bonus. I have the Samsung wireless charger that it's sort of a it can slide up into the upright or lay flat as a pad, and the cradle. I can't I can't rest my iPhone 10 on it with a case on it at all, or it just slips away from the charger just enough that it will charge and uncharge, which makes your phone buzz,
Yes.
which wakes me up all night long. So if it slides off the charger, it'll just like randomly at nighttime just go bzz,
Oh no.
because it's hitting and missing that charge because it slides forward just a tick. Without the case on, it's fine. It charges 100% of the time, no problem. But it's only when I wear a case, I put a case on it and it's not that the thickness of the case, it's actually the sliding of the rest that it has on it. So having that sort of lip on the outside to help keep that keep the charging pad in place when it's in upright is a really great bonus. And another thing that you pointed out, which is that you can rest it in landscape mode or in portrait mode. Again, the wireless charger that I have, the Samsung that slides from flat to upright, I can do that, but it doesn't hit the charging pad doesn't actually hit when it's in landscape mode. It's off to the side, and I have to sort of like maneuver my phone off to the side a little and worry about it almost falling off the edge in order to catch the charge while it's in landscape mode. So yeah, these are two really big bonuses that I, like you're saying, that because it was developed in collaboration with Apple, they got those very specific details about exactly where the charging, whatever you would call it inside the iPhone, the charging mechanism inside the iPhone, they know exactly where it is so that they could develop the charging pad to be specifically capable of fitting that. So it's really nice.
Excellent. Let's go ahead. We have time for one more topic. I just would like to hear you both tell me about the Super Smash Brothers news.
Luke, I think you should hit this one.
Yeah. So in case you missed it, yesterday Nintendo held a Nintendo Direct, and it was a pretty short one. It was about like just under half an hour. However, it was all about the Super Smash Brothers Ultimate, which is coming out in December for the Nintendo Switch. And I didn't think I could be any more hyped for this game because all the stuff we got at E3 about the fact that things we already knew was that every character that's ever been in Smash Bros. In any iteration of Smash Bros. Before is going to be in this one. That they changed a lot of the inconsistencies and problems that the Wii U version had when it comes to, and this is more if you're a competitive player, but when it comes to distance for when you're hitting enemies and things like that. A lot of the like mild minutia that people, the meta that people who are competitive or want to be competitive in the competitive space kind of concern themselves about. Mm-hmm. But on top of that, they also at E3 they had announced a new character, Ridley, from the Metroid games, which is the villain in Samus's one, like arch nemesis, pretty much.
Okay.
And they kind of said at E3, they were kind of like, our big focus with this game was including all of the heroes we've had before. So I hope you don't expect too many heroes. Well, then they come out yesterday and they announced 2 new heroes right off the top. So joining the fight is going to be Simon Belmont, who anybody who's ever played the old school platformer Castlevania games should be excited about. Because Simon is obviously the person who kills Dracula in Castlevania.
Oh, well, you just spoiler alert there.
Spoilers.
Spoilers for a game that came out in 1986.
Yeah.
More than 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So Simon Belmont has joined the fray, and and this one's kind of funny. I didn't expect this to happen, and I always get his name wrong, but King R. Rule. It's the Lizard King from Donkey Kong.
Okay, yeah.
And he's joining the fight, which I feel is pretty awesome. I feel like he's a really campy villain that I'm interested to see what his move sets and stuff are going to be.
Yeah, he's going to be fun.
Yeah. On top of that, so if that wasn't enough, they announced a couple more Echo characters, which in case you don't know, Echo character is they're kind of like sort of like a clone. They're a character based on another character. They mostly have the similar move sets, but they have some different animations and a little bit of different timing. So they are slightly different, but they're not like a whole new character, and they're called Echo characters.
I thought that was characters from Echo the Dolphin.
Yeah. So Kron from the Fire Emblem series is going to be an echo of Roy, also from the Fire Emblem series, and Dark Samus is going to be an echo of Samus. And on one more thing that they announced that I got really excited about is they've announced a few new stages, but in total, at the beginning, this isn't with any DLC or anything. At the beginning, when you buy Super Smash Bros. Ultimate on December 7th, when it comes out, it'll have 103 playable stages to battle on, which is insane.
Yeah, that's so cool, and they're all unlocked right out of the gate, right?
Are they really?
I think so. I
think that's what it is. That they're all unlocked right away.
I think so. There might be, there maybe would be some unlocking that I don't think has 100% come out yet. But I believe it's rumored, and they seem to, from what they said, that there'll be 103 playable stages right off the bat. Yeah. And then every stage actually also has a couple different modes. They have a battlefield mode and a final destination mode, which essentially just, for people who don't know, will take away certain platforms. It kind of makes it a more stable map. But every one of those 103 stages are going to have those versions. So really, there's like 300 versions of stages in this game. So that's pretty ridiculous for any Smash fans. This is really starting to look like the ultimate Smash game, which is probably why they picked the name.
Yeah. They're never going to make another Super Smash Brothers game again, ever, because this is going to be the be-all, end-all of games. What about that GameCube controller?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, lots of people love playing Super Smash Brothers with a GameCube controller. It kind of Smash Bros. Melee, which was the first one that came out, or not the first one, sorry, but the one that came out on the GameCube, kind of became like the king for a while. And there's still lots of people, actually, there's still a competitive scene, even though the game is super old. There's still a competitive scene for it because it was just that good. And lots of people, the controller, if you haven't used a GameCube controller, it's one of the most comfortable controllers you'll ever hold. Mm-hmm. It was really well designed. It looks funky when you look at it, but when you get it in your hands, it is one of the most comfortable controllers I've ever held. And Nintendo Switch does work with them if you have the right adapters. So you need the USB Wii U adapter, which it used to be called, but now I'm assuming they'll come up with a Switch one. But all it is that you can plug in, an old school GameCube, even a GameCube controller, and then that'll plug in to the USB port on the back of the Switch dock, and it'll let you play. And they have a specific one. Nintendo's coming out with a specific one that's going to be branded for Super Smash Brothers Ultimate with the adapter. You can pre-order those right now. And then there's some other third-party companies that have been coming out with some interesting designs. The newest ones were Horipad came out with, is coming out with 3 different versions that are going to be like GameCube's controller style. It's going to look and feel like a GameCube controller, but it's still going to have all the buttons, like the screenshot button and the plus and the minus and all that stuff. And there's a Mario themed one, a yellow Pikachu themed one, and what was the other one? A Black Zelda one, themed one. Currently, though, there's some rumors that might not come out in North America, that it's only slated for Japan right now, but that might also not be true. So definitely if you're looking for a new GameCube controller because you don't have an old one lying around or the adapter lying around, definitely check out some of those options as well.
That's rude.
Yep, that's coming out right before Christmas. So, if you've got somebody in your life that loves
like your favorite podcast
Super Smash. Micah, are you going to buy a Nintendo Switch so that you can play Super Smash Brothers?
No. Okay, here's the deal. Well, I used to play Super Smash Bros. With friends all the time. It was so much fun. Like, we'd all get together, have some booze and play Super Smash Brothers and fight each other to the death whenever we lost on the game and punch each other's lights out. Good times. So, no, we didn't do all that, but we did have a lot of fun playing. And that was when I lived in a different city where I was around a lot more folks. And so here there aren't as many people to come over and play Super Smash Bros. And I don't think it's a good idea for me to put out like a Craigslist ad that's like, hey, come to my house and play Super Smash Bros. And pet my dogs. So I won't be doing that. I won't be getting a Switch, but if I end up moving, which is potentially the cards, then yeah, Switch is definitely in my future in that sense. So
Move to California.
We'll play all
Live
the time.
next door to me. We'll play Super Smash Brothers and get drunk and beat each other up.
Yeah, rage! Woo! You can teach me how to sing like you can with the voice, and yeah, it'll be great.
All right. Well, I think that's the end of our show.
That does wrap things up. That means that it is time to thank all of you out there for listening. Lori Gill, if people are looking for you online, where can they find you?
They can find me at Apaholic on Twitter. That's APPAHOLIK. And they can find me at Lori Gill at most of their social things, and especially on iMore, where I'm writing all the time.
Excellent. And Luke Filipowicz, if people are looking for you online, where can they find you?
As always, I'm writing for iMore, so you can check out my articles for gaming tips and how-tos for your phone, and great products that we like to highlight over at iMore. And you can also find me on Twitter at Luke Filipowicz, LukeFilipowicz.
Excellent. And if Renee Ritchie were here, he would tell you could find him at Renee Ritchie on Twitter. You can also go to vector.show to check out Vector and check out the new pins that he just got. They're so cool. And
I already
look like
pre-ordered mine.
Oh, they're so cool. And if you're looking for me online, you can find me at Micah Sargent on most social things, or you can head to chihuahua.coffee. That's CHIHUAHUA.coffee, which is a site that has links to all the things I do. You can, of course, find all of our writing over at iMore. I want to thank Jim Metzendorf so much for editing this show and making us sound so beautiful every week. Yes, in fact, I don't actually have a British accent normally, but he adds one in post. So thank Jim Metzendorf for that. We will, of course, be back next week with so much more. Lori will be here or else. And I want you all to have a great week or weekend, depending on when you're listening to this. Until next time, this has been the iMore Show.
Thank you.